All right, this is Jeff of All Trades, making a quick little response video. So some background information. I bought an iPhone 8 with the idea that I was going to use it to trade in for AT&T's deal that they've got going on right now. Trade in an iPhone 8 or better, and you get $700 towards a iPhone 12. I ended up getting the iPhone 12 Pro Max. It's been a while since I've had a great big phone, and I thought I wanted to try it again. And but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, I bought this phone with a cracked back glass, thinking that I'd just replace the back glass real quick and trade it in. Got a good deal on it, paid about $140 after tax from an eBay seller that's in Texas, just a couple hours away, so I got the phone in just a couple days. I was a little single-minded about it. I should have taken it out, tested, made sure the phone actually worked. But I didn't. I went right to removing the rest of the cracked back glass. It looked like someone had gone at it before me a little bit and then given up. So I did that, got the back glass removed, got it looking nice and clean. And, you know, this is the state we're at now. I've gotten a bunch of stuff on the inside of the camera removed. And then I turned it over and was like, okay, well, I'm going to update it to the latest operating system, kind of get it cleaned up, make sure everything's good before I go and go ahead and install the back glass and trade it in. Well, got it updated. It had some trouble connecting to iTunes, and then it started giving me activation failure. Oh, well, the activation server's down, this, that, and the other. It's like, I went and checked to see if the activation server was down on apple.com. The activation server was fine. I had another phone that I was resetting. It activated just fine. So there was something wrong with it. And then I saw that it was searching and not finding a network, but it wasn't saying no SIM like a phone normally would. I started searching the internet for some issues. I eventually found this video here that I'll share. I'll share the screen real quick right here. So I eventually found this video here from iTechRepairs, and he's got an iPhone 8 searching, no service, getting trolled, and he reballed the baseband chip, reballed another chip, and eventually looked down here towards the little skinny part of the board and saw that there was some stuff missing here, and he ended up replacing this chip. Let me see if I can. This is a donor board that he eventually ended up getting. And he's pulling those chips off, those capacitors. Those capacitors are just off a power line, they're filtering to ground. The chip that we're really interested in is right here. In this video, he said, I don't really know what this chip is. I wasn't able to get any information on it. But he pulled it off a donor board and put it on, and it worked. You know, so just for your purposes here, this capacitor here is about, less than half the size of a grain of rice, and this one is just almost invisible with the naked eye. It's really, really tiny. So he's probably at 50 times magnification right now. And this is just really incredibly small. And so I didn't have access to a donor board. I didn't have any board views. I didn't have any schematics. So I went and hunted for a program. I finally, I downloaded both Open Board View and Phone Board, but then I didn't have any BRDs, and I didn't want to spend $300 some odd on getting the whole set from one of those websites that I have seen on other iPhone repair channels. And so I just went hunting, and eventually I found the Phone Board app, and I'll share that here. Let me share that screen. All right, so I have the Phone Board program. I was able to, it came with a lot of different board views. It did not come with any schematics, so cancel that here. So I've got the iPhone 8, and this is the Intel chipset, and this is the A side of the board. Not sure whether it's really the top or the bottom. It's the bottom as it's installed in the phone. But So I zoomed in here, and at this point, I still didn't really know what I was looking for. But I took a look at these capacitors. I saw that all of these were power filter capacitors going to ground here. And this was the spot for this little chip. Now the color coding here, the gray ones are to ground. These lavender, blue, whatever the color this is not connected. And then these are the active pins here. So I clicked here. I saw PP1V8 TCXO_K. I don't know what TCXO means, but I knew PP1V8. All right, so that's a 1.8 volt power line. And then the other active pin, TCXO BBGNSS32K_K. So 32K, I was thinking, okay, is this just some sort of resistor, a 32 kilo ohm resistor? But so let me do some Googling. Again, I wasn't able to find a schematic for this particular chipset. The Qualcomm chipset, there's schematics all over the place. But for the iPhone 8 Intel chipset, you just can't hardly find anything at all. And so I looked through the iPhone 7 and just searched TCXO on the schematic. I went through the iPhone 8, found TCXO, and let me share that screen with you. Come on. Stop that share. We're going to screen share Acrobat Pro. Switch there. Okay. So I searched TCXO. It took me right to this. PP1V8 always. Okay. So that other PP1V8 is probably just an AKA and also known as an alias. So looking here, I see, okay, this is a 32.768 kilohertz crystal oscillator. And apparently that's what XO stands for. And 10 ppm. And I can see that this matches up. I have the voltage in here. There's a little capacitor here filtering that power line to ground. And then I've got the not connected one and the clock out, and that matched. So it's like, okay, so they're using the same oscillator in the 8 plus that they used in iPhone 8, and that makes sense. So then I just started searching for 32.768 kilohertz crystal oscillator, because I did not have a donor board. And that brought me to eventually a couple different websites. One of the companies wanted like $25 for one. I kept searching, and that brought me to the Mouser website. I should have gone there first. I know better. So that brought me here to Mouser. And this looks like it checks out, you know. Okay, so I've got a TCXO oscillator, 32.768 kilohertz, 10 ppm, -40 to +85 degrees. And I went back down and said, it's really tiny. So I got my calipers out and my little handheld microscope and measured it. It was okay. It's a little more than 1.5 millimeters by a little less than 1 millimeter. And, you know, somewhere on the data sheet, it says, okay, well, that's what the size is. I think if I go back one page here, that'll show us, yeah, here it is. And, you know, so I checked the size checked out. It looked like it was about right. And so I ordered a couple of them, spent, you know, $4 on the chips and $8 for shipping, which is kind of typical when you order a one-off. And Mouser got it here in just 2 days, which is fan-freaking-tastic. And then I was able to get it soldered on the board. Now, I don't have a proper microscope that was that I can look under while I'm working. I've got this, which is just a little handheld microscope made to, look at things directly on a tabletop. So I'd get the board out and kind of look at it. And so once I looked at the board, I found that some of the copper traces were gone on mine, but in the style of Louis Rossmann and Jessa Jones, I've seen them put some little wires and kind of create new pads based on nubs and off the ends of capacitors. And again, I don't have micro tweezers. I'm using my, a small tip on an old Hacko ESD workstation that uses the old style tips. It doesn't use the new style like TS100 tips. And, got it at 900 degrees, just hot as anything, but I had pretty good technique. So I was able to eventually get those wires soldered on without melting anything else. And ended up making a big solder blob on the not connected pin that was still there, and connecting that to a wire that I'd run from a ground, with the hope that when I soldered that chip on, it would blob over onto the ground pin on the chip, and then use the wire to connect to the ground pad. That was about ½ an inch away that I'd wired it to, and then the other two pads would sit. So the chip is not level on the board by any stretch of the imagination, but it is connected. Also, I don't have a heat station, but what I do have is this little Bernzomatic torch that works. It's a little butane torch. Normally, it's got a little hot air blower attachment that screws onto it, and I've had this thing for a decade. And you can screw in a little soldering tip on the end. They make a little conical soldering tip for it. And I said, I don't even know if this is going to be hot enough. So put some M-Tech flux in that I ordered from Rossmann, and tried to wick away the lead-free garbage that was on there. I've got all sorts of regular solder, and put some pennies on top of the nearby chips and soldered it on, and it works. So again, I showed you the device before. You can see here that I was able to get the phone activated. Let's see if I can unlock it. Yeah. Put in the passcode here. Okay, and get that up. You can see that I have an IMEI, and yeah, so I was able to get it working. So this does have a carrier lock on it. So we'll see if AT&T cares about that, and if it does, then I may file an item not as described claim and try to get my money back anyway. But anyway, so when I initially had this problem, I contacted iPadRehab and said, hey, this is what I think's going on. Is there any way y'all can do this job for me? Because again, this is my first attempt at micro-soldering. I've been soldering electronics for 15 years, but micro-soldering is new. So I was like, hey, can you do this to me? They said back, no, we don't offer a solution for that. Sorry, fair enough. And so that's when I went ahead and pulled the trigger and ordered the chips myself and said, you know what? Worst case scenario, I'm out another $12, whereas I've already put potentially 140 or so in the toilet. So I was really excited. Part of the reason I'm making this video is because I was really excited that I was able to get it to work. Doesn't look particularly pretty, but it does work. So I'm going to finish this video out just by taking the screen and motherboard back out of the phone and putting this up to the camera for you. Again, I'm planning on buying a microscope and a hot air station, so I can do more of this in the future. This is the kind of work I really enjoy doing in my spare time, you know, and you can make a fair bit of money at it too. But get this as close to the camera as possible, even. Yeah, it doesn't look like I'm gonna be able to get that to focus. But again, I didn't even bother replacing those power filter capacitors. Again, I've seen Jessa knock off, 80% of the chips on a phone and still have it boot. So I figured, there's still a couple more power filter caps on here. I just need this to work well enough that it passes the device condition check when I trade it in. I'm not trying to use this phone. So you can see this is the inside of the case here. I've got the camera modules and a whole bunch of other stuff taken out right now. But yeah, so that's it. I'm going to try to post this video as a response to the YouTube video that I showed you before. Just, hey, this is the information about this chip. This is what it is. Maybe this is a problem when somebody nukes their phone trying to remove the back glass and doesn't do a very good job of it with a heat gun or whatever. And so that might turn into a pretty simple repair if it just turns out that this clock chip is vulnerable. And there you have it.